Good afternoon, Nishta, and welcome to Design Dialogues hosted by Rethinking the Future in collaboration with Fublis. This is your host, Bhavya, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Nishta, the visionary founder of Studio Nishita Kamdar. Just to give a brief introduction about your studio, Studio Nishita Kamdar is an award winning design practice based in Mumbai, specializing in architecture and interior design with POD Pieces of Desire, which caters to bespoke furniture pieces. Founded in 2015, by Nishta, the studio creates functional and contextually responsive spaces that balance beauty with utility. With focus on residential, commercial, and holiday home projects, the firm design approaches to research, simplicity, and a passion for creating environments that engage the senses. Thank you for joining us, Nishta, today.
Bhavya, for having me, and I'm very excited to kickstart this interview today.
Yeah. So just a second before we start the question, I would like to inform you that this interview will be published on the website of Fublis. So you sign up on the Fublis website and you'll get the access to watch this interview. So shall we proceed with the questions?
Yes.
So let's have the first question for the day. So how does your research-driven design process influence the final outcome of your projects?
So, Bhavya, every time a new project comes to us, it's like we begin the story from scratch all over again. You're sitting with a new brief, a new client, a whole new story. So, it requires us to start ideating all the way from the bottom going upwards and building that story, a different story for each different client, is something that we find very interesting. And I feel that's where our forte as designers comes in. It is that process which is a lot of fun, observing the client, observing the things they do, they like, what are the little nuances of life that makes them so different than the previous client. And we try to incorporate that in our designs and ensure that each project that we do has a Studio Nishita Kamdar touch to it, but at the same time has a lot about the client as well, because at the end of it, it's their home.
So moving on to your project, ARIA, can you discuss the main design philosophy that guided that project?
So Arya actually is a very kind of personal project in that sense, because I think it is the coming of our studio, which completes 10 years in November. And I feel at the 10th year to have a project like that is something that I'm very proud of. Arya begins as the perfect dialogue between a client and an architect and a designer, and how both these creative forces come to a middle ground. The client was very passionate about art and design and well traveled and had a vision, and so did we have a vision, and he gave us complete freedom to explore our vision, which was amazing. And it's the amalgamation of the two which makes it a beautiful project. So in Arya, we often say that one never needed to buy too much art, even though it was an art collector, but we wanted the space itself to become a piece of art. So even if you look at a wall, or you look at the floor, or you look at the ceiling, there's always these little details that you'll find which make it very interesting and become a talking point in the project. So I think that makes the project very special.
So in ARIA project, what were the key lessons that were learned, and how do you plan to apply those in your further and future projects?
I think the more fun lesson that we learned from Arya, and I feel which I hope my other clients also really learn from that. It's not just our learning, but I think a learning for clients as well, is that when there is a right mixture of the client and the architect, and when they come together creatively and beautifully, it ends up in a very, very lovely project. It's never about just too much of the architect, and it's never about just too much of the client. It has to be the right balance. There has to be trust in each other, and then the result will be amazing. So I think it's the first time, not the first time, it's probably one of the, one of the times that we've seen, the two forces come together very well.
You just mentioned that your firm and your studio is turning 10 years this year, and congratulations on
Thank
that,
you.
by the way. And so, how does ARIA as a project, it may seem that it's very close to your heart, how does it reflect your studio's overall design ethos?
So, like I said earlier, I think we love minimal design. We love restrained design. I think by now we have a little signature in doing like these little kind of moves, little architectural and spatial moves within the entire apartment, which otherwise is like the most basic quintessential Bombay apartment. But it's those little changes that we do in the layout which makes a very big difference. And I think, uh, you know, it's the exact thing that we always preach, let the architecture of the space do the talking and do less to the interiors, and then it'll make a beautiful space. So here, I'll give you a small example. It's we wanted a divider or a wall between the entry and the dining area. Typically people would say, okay, let's kind of do a wall, and then we paint the wall, and then we'll do the usual treatments, and then we'll hang art on it. And then we said, no, why? Let's just do a beautiful art piece as a wall, or let's just create a wall in this beautiful molded red form, which is like a melted candle, and let that become the first thing and the wall that people see. So the wall is no more like this dead wall on which you are applying more art or kind of design, but that itself becomes the design. You design it in a way that it becomes something which is pretty looking.
So, looking back to your journey, 10 years of your studio, can you share any project where a design was significantly influenced by something very unexpected?
A good question. I think it'll have to be this beautiful table that I designed called the centipede table. And I often tell people one of the best things I like to do is just people watch, is just look around, just observe, just see different things that are happening around me. And I was commissioned to do a set of 4 tables for a corporate office. And you often wonder, okay, if somebody's hired me just to do tables and I don't know the client, like I'm just supposed to design the furniture. Now, where will I start? My inspiration from? And I was sitting there in site, it's in Nagpur, and then, very typical office behavior, 5 o'clock, and, everybody's just like taking their bags and running away. And, it's like this, like you're dying to get out of office, and it's the idea of running away. And I was sitting there in the cafe, and I see the centipede kind of like, walking and crawling like this, almost running away in the same fashion that everybody else was running away. And the centipede with like 10 legs and like, just like crawling away this way. And I'm like, this is interesting. Like I see a centipede running away, I see people running away. Why can't I take inspiration from that? And that was the starting point. A centipede was the starting point for this beautiful table we designed for an office. It's this lovely wooden log table with like these legs which look like the centipede's legs. And it's actually like, my kind of quirky takeaway from the office that was there, that it's like people always want to run away. But yeah, I think that was a great starting point. I mean, people get inspired from different things. You have Zaha Hadid getting inspired by a bird's nest, and then you have Norman Foster who's taken a gherkin into a building, and so I think it's crazy.
I think our architects, we are just built like that. We are just crazy enough to have crazy inspiration from crazy ideas. Yeah. So moving on. So how did you ensure that the design aligned with one of your project named Iswarappa, brand's philosophy while incorporating the client's vision in details?
So Sprava is this. They are developers from Goa, and they do beautiful beach homes, and they have this lovely ethos of like Portuguese, laid back, very chilled out homes. They've done a bunch of lovely places there, and when they got us on board to do something for them, for the longest time they were kind of just following the very simple process of Portuguese colors, very like kind of Goan colors of yellows and blues, and we said, okay, why don't we change things a little bit around? I feel like the shell of the building is looking so plain. Can we do something to that? Like, I mean, let's have colored walls instead of everything just being white. So in each of our projects, we try to add a little bit of our touch, even though the client has a strong personality. And I think they appreciate that, because I think they're onboarding newer designers so that they can get a freshness. So we try to add a little bit of us everywhere we go.
So looking forward to your another initiative that is POD, Pieces of Desire. Could you share how POD's philosophy shapes your design process and the criteria you consider when transforming an idea into a functional object?
So architecture and interiors is a kind of macro level practice, and then at some point you feel as a designer that you also need to zoom into the more human centric level, or the more micro level detailing, and that's how POD for me was born, which is pod is called Pieces of Desire. And where I wanted to kind of design furniture pieces which are functional yet beautiful, yet needed in the market, and not something that is just going to be a cookie cutter or just another piece that you see elsewhere as well. So we did a lot of research on what we could do until we said let's do swings, because swings in India is one of the most traditionally and culturally important furniture pieces. And I can guarantee you that 1 of 5 homes has one swing, which is a huge number. Probably 1 in 4 homes have a swing, literally. So, and everybody aspires to have a swing. And till now, we've always, in fact, I don't remember the last time I've walked into a store and just seen swings. There are very few people who are just designing that. And we said, okay, fine, let's tap into this market, which is untapped. And let's give them a 2.0 version of the swing, which is not your Sankhedas and not your Jarokas. Let's give them swings that they've never seen before. And that's how Pod was born for me.
I just want to mention that, POD, like Pieces of Desire, it's such an exotic and a very unique name to a very creative, innovative, and initiative that you have. It's really nice. I've gone through your website and I really loved it, and it
Thank
was
you.
amazing.
Thank you.
So, moving on. In a market focused on trend, POD aims to maintain a very unique and timeless quality. Could you elaborate on how you generally navigate current trends while preserving this enduring approach in your collection?
I think my focus on Pod was very, very kind of streamlined, that I wanted to sell swings. I didn't want to just design swings. And when there is that clear distinction in what you are trying to achieve, you will try and make the product as functional as it has to be. A swing has to work like a swing. It has to be comfortable for somebody to sit on. It has to be comfortable for somebody to lean back on. It has to be comfortable for somebody to touch it. It has to last well. It has to clean well. It has to do all those kind of things. But at the same time, it has to look like a swing that people have never seen before. And that's where I, as a designer, come in. Me as a creative person steps in. So I think, the focus of what the product needs to be, you can't ever remove the function out of the form. So that we were very clear about, I think. And for any, if you see any successful furniture brand or design brand, like, I mean, if you let's take for example an IKEA, if their sofa didn't function like a sofa, or their basic chair that they sell for like literally 2,000 rupees doesn't do the job of a chair, it falls flat. No amount of no amount of kind of cost effectiveness will help it sell if it doesn't do the function. So it's as simple as that.
Question about I have read a lot about your talks about your architecture and interior designing journey. So what does the phrase architecture should feel beautiful mean to you in your practice?
Again, this is also like an underlying design ethos or principle that we follow in office, that like, we're designing spaces that people are going to create a home out of, not a house out of. They're going to create a home. It's going to be filled with emotions, with memories. It is something that has to last generations. You can't just create spaces that look good. You have to create spaces that feel good, whether it being sitting in the armchair at the corner window with the sunlight filtering in through the beautiful shears that you have taken. The chair is made of velvet, so when you sit on it and when you touch it like that, it feels very soft to you. It's all these little decisions that you make as a designer which make the product richer, which make a project richer. If I'm sitting on the dining table, like, and I'm going to put my hands like this and say, do I want the edges of the dining table to be rounded so that the corners don't hit me? So that's what I mean by architecture has to feel beautiful. So when I touch it, it's all about the human being able to touch it and feel it. So it has to be custom and tailor made to what the client wants to feel.
So moving on to the last question for the day. How important is project documentation and publication for you today? And can you highlight a very favorite or a challenging project of that stands out for its documentation?
So I think a lot of your work comes through documenting projects, through putting your projects out there, in the media, which is also at the moment very, very, kind of chaotic, very confused. Clients don't know where to look. It's just too much excessive information. So carefully curating what you want to put out there is again very important, and where you want to stand and where you want to be seen is very important as well. So yes, documenting each project is necessary because it just gives you enough kind of work to show your clients. Publicizing each and every project is not needed. However, because I do feel that good projects will always come through recommendation if you've done a good project. And of course, we do get a lot of projects through publicizing, no doubts, but I don't feel that every project requires to be out there. It's better to put your best work out.
So that was the last question for the day, Nishta. Thank you so much for giving your precious time, and it was a pleasure to have you here. And don't forget to sign up on the Fublis website.